Hi Liz, here we are at your final essays in this package. Let's have a look at the essay about green energy first. So nowadays, most green energy is becoming more prevalent, and some people say it reduces costs, and others believe that's a threat to energy security. Let's see. The issue whether renewable energy effect is a noun, affect is a verb, affects the reduction of costs, or, so you see, if you have the right effect here, then what we can do is we can have an expression has an effect on the reduction of cost or affects negatively or affects energy security negatively, has grown in importance over the last years. Nice. I believe this kind of energy is more sustainable at time as far. I'm not sure what you mean by this. I am not sure what you mean by this, and this means that you need to tell me what you mean and to rephrase it appropriately, because I cannot correct something that I don't understand. I can't even guess. Do you mean sometimes, or as long as? No, it doesn't work, because I believe this kind of energy is more sustainable because using it helps protect our environment and reduces costs. Okay. This essay will argue for the advantages of the green energy using examples from BBC and Michigan College studies to demonstrate points and prove arguments. Okay. On one hand, the environment protection is remarkably visible. The environment protection, you need the context. You cannot just start this. You have to use the concept of sustainable, renewable energy, anything. You can say, on the one hand, the environment protection as a result of using renewable energy resources is remarkably visible, right? So I added those words as context here, so you can do that. This is due to the fact that green energy considerably reduces the emission of toxic gases as a result of extraction and use of oil. No, wait a second, you contradict yourself. You say green energy here and you say as a result of extraction and use of oil. If you mean that when oil is used and extracted or used, the amount of toxic gases is incomparably higher. So you really have to fix this part because the comparison is not balanced. So once again, it should sound like this. This is due to the fact that green energy considerably reduces the emission of toxic gases. The amount of which is impressively high at the extraction and use of petrol. I would say petrol, not oil. For example, a recent study by BBC showed that in Australia, wait a second. I don't understand this sentence. A recent study by BBC showed that in Australia harnessed the weight. I don't know what you mean, so I cannot compare. Generated 80% of the UK electricity. Okay, why do we have UK and Australia in one sentence? This is one. Two, what do you mean by harness the way of water? To harness means to learn how to control. So do you mean that in Australia they came up with a method to derive energy from the power of waves, which was implemented in the UK and now generates 80% of the UK electricity? Because I am not sure what you mean, like completely not sure. So you really have to rephrase this. I cannot help you here because I don't know what you meant. So an error in language use probably leads to a massive lack of comprehension and affects your task achievement, coherence, and everything. This reduced the emission of toxic what by almost 40%. Where? In Australia, in UK. Therefore, it is clear that if governments improve the infrastructures for developing renewable energy, there would be more positive implications for our environment. Okay, great. But I didn't understand how the developing infrastructure works because of the language confusion in the sentence. Sorry about that. I understand the general intention, but unfortunately, this needs work. On the other hand, green energy will be consistently cheaper, will be or is or could be. I don't think the future is the appropriate tense here. I would say let's take a chance and say is. It's considered consistently cheaper than fossil fuel energy. And do you mean energy or electricity? Because you keep using and overusing the word energy. This is because the sustainability in the long term of renewable energy is better as far. What do you mean by as far? I have seen it here as well, and I don't understand what you mean. Okay, this is a great idea, but it has to be rephrased. This is because renewable energy is much more sustainable in the long term. This is how it should be rephrased. I gave you a rephrase, so perhaps you could use it or use your own because I still don't know what you mean by this. Take, for example, a research from Michigan College, which illustrated that in more than 150 countries, the cost of generating power from onshore wind and solar photovoltaic panels, great use, photovoltaic, great use of a very appropriate and complex word here, compared with fossil fuels. Wait a second. The cost compared with fossil fuels had fallen by around or two. I'm not sure again by this by. Do you mean that it has decreased minus 23% or it had reached 23%? So I'm not sure what you mean by this by, and I'm not sure. So you mean 23 for wind and 73 for solar? Do you mean this? Again, this is a bit confusing. Conclusively, it is possible to state beyond doubt that if the use of renewable sources of energy were implemented with use of a correct use of conditional, there would be a reduction in the cost of power generation. Okay. I would add an adjective here before reduction: a considerable, a significant, and impressive. I don't even know. From the arguments and examples given, I firmly believe that turning to renewable sources for new power generation is not only a simple, and you need an adjective here, a simple and environmentally conscious decision, but it is also a smart economic move. But it is a smart economic move as well, right? Let's try and take this up a notch, because also is easy. How about using as well, right? We don't want to use decision the second time. We can use the word move here. It is no wonder green energy will become increasingly popular. Okay, you are very, very factual and categorical here. How can you predict this? Based on what? You can say it in a sentence like this: based on the information, on the arguments presented above, it is no wonder, no, based on the information presented above, green energy is very likely to become increasingly popular in more and more countries of the world. Right? Very likely. This means that you still leave the benefit of the doubt. You cannot simply say, this will happen. Nothing is 100% sure. Anyway, that's a good essay. This is a nice essay. Just make sure that you take care of the confusing parts, because they take away band points from you massively, just massively. Okay. Task 1, the maps. Okay. The two maps show the changes experienced in one island in two periods of time. What do you mean by two periods of time? Periods. I'm not sure what you mean by this. Okay, let me read this and then give you advice. From the map, it is clear that before the island was a virgin place with some visible trees, whereas after a lot of changes were made in order to transform the place in a tourist destination, the trees that before occupied the area near the beach and the central part of the island were cut and replaced with cabins and buildings. Okay, undoubtedly, as it is illustrated by the map, footpaths and vehicle tracks were improved along the communication through the different places. The sea in the high side of what was not affected. However, in the opposite direction, a small jetty for the boats was made. In the area located in the right hand, except for a lake that was placed, the high and the bottom areas both were kept the same as before. I'm simply trying to read to figure out what you have so that I know what to advise. Overall, it is clear that the island experienced a great deal of change, the most remarkable being the reduction of green areas and the development of accommodation and different routes. Okay. So saying that there was two periods of time is irrelevant because I don't understand what you mean. You can say this, that it depicts the state of the island before and after the development, or this map depicts the projected plan for the development of an island. It's like right now we have this on the island, but in 1 year after the development, construction, digging the lake and all that, we are going to have this. Like imagine you're an engineer or a development, whatever. I'm not really good at the technical part. Let's say you are a developer, right? Engineer, civil engineer or something like this. So you present a project to be funded. So you present the plan of what it's going to look like, and this is actually it. It's not how it used to be, it's how it's going to be. That's one. So I'm not sure that we can say it like this. This is simply incorrect. Sorry about that. Okay, this is a bit informal if you say it was a virgin place with some visible trees, with only a few trees growing. Okay. Whereas after a lot of changes implemented in order to transform the place into a tourist destination, the trees that before occupied the area near the beach and the central part of the island were cut and replaced. I wouldn't say that they were replaced by, were cut and cabins and buildings and a number of residential and commercial buildings were constructed or erected. Okay, so I have just rephrased this part. I cannot write all this because I will end up rewriting the whole part one. I hope you understand. That's why if you want to record all the corrections that I made, please keep track of what I'm saying and listen to this again and take notes. Undoubtedly, as it is illustrated by the map, footpaths and vehicle tracks were improved. They were not improved, they were built. They were traced, but not improved because there were absolutely no tracks before. Allowing communication through between different places. This part I don't understand. This part I don't understand, seriously. Okay. Okay, I wouldn't say jetty is the most popular word. You can also say quay or pier. Okay, up to you. I would say pier. Okay, this is great. You have mentioned this. In the area located in the right hand, well, when we point to the map, we say on the right hand side, on the left hand side, but perhaps you could use the north, south, west, east, west references because it's more appropriate in this geographical context, and it's more typical for a context like this. A lake that was placed. A lake was not placed. You can say a lake was developed or dug, D-U-G, which comes from the verb dig. The high and bottom areas both were kept as before. You cannot say the high and bottom areas. You can say the northeastern and let's say the north and northeastern areas were kept as before or were preserved as before. So overall, it is clear that the island experienced a great deal of change, not changing, change. The most remarkable being the reduction of green areas and the development of accommodation and different routes. Okay, that's a nice overview. You have an overall okay overview, especially in the conclusion, but you really have to make sure that you manage the language appropriately to present the information that you have and focus on the right things. Basically, what the map actually represents as a plan for development. So this means this will influence your grammar as well. And then the appropriate words for the footpaths, residential areas, commercial areas, the geographical cardinal points, and so on and so forth. This is a nice effort. I am sure that you can learn on this experience. And anyway, I am totally convinced that with a bit of experience, with a bit of practice, you will be able to handle maps as well. Anyway, all the best of luck, and I'm looking forward to your next essays.